Hey y'all, this video is meant to be a very quick introduction to the InDesign workspace, what it's good for, and how to work with your files in here. So the first thing I'm going to do is set up a new file. And the types of files that are good to work in InDesign with are documents where you need to manage a lot of typography or multi-page documents. And so InDesign is specifically suited to manage those things at scale and to manage layout design. So let's go ahead and start. Let's set up our page. I'm going to switch this to inches and just make this 8 inches wide by 10 inches tall. These things we can change later, so you don't really need to stress out about them now. And then facing pages is just fine. So let's go ahead and create this. And you'll see you get a screen that looks a lot like what you're used to in Illustrator. One thing I like to do is I like to work in the workspace of typography. And so I'm going to go ahead and reset that just to make sure that everything is the default. And if you reset yours, this is also what yours looks like. So a lot of the tools here are the same. We have our type tool, we have our shape tools, we have our pen tool. So a lot of it is familiar. But you'll see if I go ahead and make a text box here, and let me go to type, just insert some filler text. So there's no way for me to do touch type here. One of the nice things about this is if I copy paste this a few, oops, what happened there? Okay. If I copy paste this a few times, you'll see that it's giving me an error down here. Not an error, but it's giving me this little plus, which tells me, hey, this text box has more text than can fit in here. So if I make another text box, I can link these together. So I can select my first text box. If I hit that plus, you'll see that my cursor is now holding some of that leftover text. And then if I click on the new text box where it has the little link icon when I hover over it, you'll see that the additional text flows into here. And these are linked in a way that if I decide I want to shrink this first text box, the text that doesn't fit there also continues to move over to the new one. So you might imagine where this gets really handy for super long documents, for things like books. And the way you'll manage longer documents is over here in the Pages panel. So by default, it creates one page for you. If I go ahead and hit plus a couple times, you'll see that I get pages that are laid out side by side, like a book. So this is how you'll manage different layouts, or you might have different versions of a layout that you want to put on different pages, but you can manage them all over here in the Pages panel. One other thing you will very likely be doing in InDesign is placing other types of content. So you might have a graphic that you made in Illustrator, or you might have a photograph that goes with your text. And those function a little differently than what you would expect them to based on other design programs, or kind of what you're used to in your word processor. Because what we actually need to use is called a frame to place those in. So I grabbed the frame tool over here, clicked and drag, and you see I get this box with an X in it. So I can now go to File, Place, and I'm going to grab my image here on my desktop. And that image now fills up that space. Now, this is not the full image. The full image is actually much, much larger. So I can shrink it down and you can start to see the space it takes up. So, and when I click and drag here, you can kind of start to see the thing that I'm getting at, which is the frame, which is the container for the image, and the actual image itself are two different things. So if you ever want to resize something, you will need to hold Command and Shift in order to scale both the frame and the content inside it itself. If you don't do that and you just resize the frame, you're basically just changing the way you're cropping that image. A couple other handy shortcuts here. You can right-click on a frame, go to Fitting, and then there's a few different fitting options for how the images are going to fit in the frame. So you can fill the frame proportionally. You see that it blows that up until the width is even to the width of the frame. You could fit the content proportionally, which means it's going to shrink that image down until it all fits within that frame. And so it gives you a little bit of flexibility where you can still manage the structure of your layout without kind of throwing things off when you throw an image in there. Okay, one other thing that I want to show since we have an image open is if I go to Window, Links, you'll see here in this Links panel that image now shows up here. And this is because any files that you place into InDesign and really into a lot of the Adobe programs, if they're not embedded, this file, if we save it, isn't actually holding that image. This is just referencing the path to the image. And so if I go delete that off my computer, InDesign won't know where the file is. And so you'll run into issues if you happen to be like copy pasting images off of the internet, for example, without saving them, where you'll get super low resolution images and you won't know why. So the best thing to do when you're working in InDesign is one, I like to, when I start a project, I like to give myself a new folder and then collect all my things in that folder and then save my InDesign document in the same place so I know it's all together. But if you happen to be working, you're kind of collecting a bunch of different stuff. You'll see here because I moved that, it can't find that image. So now I have to tell it where it is. And once I do that, the error goes away. But another way to do this is to do what's called a package of your file, and that will collect all of the different things you've worked on together and save them in one place. And you can do that by going to File. I first have to save the document, so I'm going to save this as a new file. And then to package, I could go to File, Package, just pretend this stuff isn't all already in the same folder. You'll see it gives me a summary of all the things that it's going to package up together, all the fonts that are in use, any of the links that are used for images, any of that stuff. Then I hit Package. I tell it where I want this to go, and let's just put this in a different folder for the example. I'm going to name this, actually this is fine, InDesign Demo Muffet folder. So this is the packaged folder. You'll get this nice, pretty package folder wherever you save that. And inside, you will have all organized a PDF export of your document, the document itself, so that you can just open this and continue working, a links folder that has any of your linked images, and then if you need to collect any document fonts that you've downloaded or that aren't part of the Adobe suite, those will also be in here. And so everything you need to work on the file is here together in this folder. Okay, so those are some best practices and kind of an introduction to what InDesign is. In some of the other videos that we'll link to, we will talk more about the features inside.